Hello everyone, welcome to another TLDR video. I am Video Pickles and today we're going to be talking about Kisses from Hell. This is a collection of short stories themed around teenage vampires, and the authors are Rochelle Mead, Kristen Cass, Kelly Armstrong, Allison Noel, and Francisca Leah Block, and it was published in 2010. And this book has 5 different short stories in it. Like I said, around like teenage vampires thing. I got this book because of Kelly Armstrong. I read one of her books and I was like, yeah, I like it. But so I was like, yeah, I'll get it. It was on sale. It was like at a thrift store type thing. So I'm like, yeah, we'll get it. And this, like I said, has 5 stories. The first story is called Sunshine, and it is by Rochelle Mead. And this one follows 2 vampire teenagers. They're both the female is engaged to another vampire. The male is dating a popular type vampire girl. They just graduated high school. They are all rich and wealthy. The main male character is a prince of this whole little country universe thing that's going on in this. And there are 2 different type of vampires. There's the normal type, which are just pretty much like humans, except they drink blood, and there are a more feral type that attack the other vampires. So while they're going off to this rich island to party for the weekend because they graduated high school, and the prince is being pressured by his dad to pick a bride, start making babies to increase his bloodline. He is an only child, and because his mother was killed when he was a little boy, so she never had a chance, I guess, to reproduce more, and his dad's like, you got to fix that. That's your one job as a prince, is to multiply. So he's just debating. He's like, I don't really want to marry this girl. She's not really the greatest, but maybe, I don't know. And they meet on the boat. He knows her. She's been around. He's like, oh, she's that quiet girl. And she appears to be very empathetic. There's an attack that happens on the boat, and everybody's like up in arms about everything. His girlfriend is being like, oh, I was there, I saw it, did everybody see it? I was almost attacked. And this other girl is just like, oh, this poor vampires were going on, and she's just like very bleeding heart with it, which he is vibing with. He was like, because his mother was killed by these type of vampires, and she doesn't know he's the prince, but she starts telling this random stranger, oh, the poor prince, I know his mother was killed by one of these things. I feel so bad for him. He must be feeling terrible. I wish I could just help him through it. And he's just like, wow, nobody's ever cared before. I think she's kind of pretty. And they get to the island. They're partying, doing regular partying things. The guy she's engaged to is super extroverted, super outgoing, kind of like the football star type stereotype person. And she's like the weird little quirky girl. And she doesn't like parties, or she's very introverted, and she's just like, you party, you hang out there, I'm just gonna go wander around and do whatever. He's kind of sort of slightly stalking her around, but not really, not trying to seem very obvious about it. And he follows her going down to the little human feeding pens, because the humans are kept in little cubicle things, and you have to sign in and pick a human and feed off of the human for the day. And she's been going to the same human because she's a very bleeding heart. She's like, no, I know him. I'm comfortable with him. And talks to him while she's feeding. Everybody tells her that's a bad idea. Don't do that. But she's like, no, he's a person, and I'm so empathetic. And so while this whole weekend of partying is happening, she gets kidnapped by this human feeder person who has fallen in love with her because she talks to him and treats him like a person. So he takes her all the way to this cave on the cliff, everybody is alerted that this chick is missing, and everybody's freaking out. They start calling in the guards and policing what's going on. This guy is just like, I know where she's at, and goes straight up to the cave, finds her there. This human is like, we'll run away, we'll live together. And he's kind of crazy. Go figure. And so he's kind of holding like a knife to her, and he's like, well, we'll be together forever. And the prince attacks him. He's fighting back, like he's almost beating the crap out of the prince. So she jumps up behind him, hits him on the head, and so the prince can push him off a cliff. And then they decide that they're gonna get married. And so they hold hands and they kiss, and they're just like, you're my soulmate. And they're like, all right, well, let's go down the hill and tell the people, like, one, she's fine, she's alive, and then two, well, let's go tell our respective partners that we're gonna break up with them and marry each other. And then it ends on that. And so I was like, okay, interesting. The second story is called Bring Me to Life, and this one was by Alyssa Noel, and it follows a teenage girl who is trying to leave her father because her father got remarried after her mother died, and the woman he remarried is younger than him, and so she's automatically like, she hates me, she's an evil stepmother, I hate her, my father doesn't love me anymore because he married somebody else. So she decides she's gonna go to an art school in a different country. Oh, and her best friend hooked up with her boyfriend right before she left, and he broke up with her because of that. So she's just like, I hate my life, I'm just gonna go away. So she goes to a different country. She wants to go to an art school. It's mysteriously covered in fog, and she's like, oh, that's weird. And they tell her that there's no other students, no other teachers or anything there, and she's like, well, that's weird. And he's like, well, it's the fog that stopped them. And she's like, okay. She's a painter. She loves to paint. In her dreams, she sees a man, and so she's trying to paint him. And she sees little glimpses and bits and pieces like before, but since she moved into this art school, she starts seeing a big picture of him. She starts seeing him more, so she starts painting him more. And mysteriously, when she wakes up the next day, her clothes are missing. And they're like, oh, we have to go clean them, but there was an issue, and oh no, here, wear this 18th century dress. And she doesn't really question it. And she's like, okay. And they keep pushing these sausages on her, which I was like, that's a weird thing to push on them. But they're like, sausages, eat these sausages. And she's like, oh my God, these are the best sausages ever. And continuously just eats them as much as she can. And she's like, all right, well, I'm going to go explore a little bit. And she meets a boy there. I say a boy, they're like 18, 19. And he's looks super cool, super edgy, and has sunglasses in the house. And he tells her his name is Bram. And he's like, I'm going to this school too. This is so great. Look at us both go. They decide to go exploring. And while they're exploring, this is over like a few days. And while they're exploring, her painting is getting more erratic but more detailed. And they end up exploring outside. And they're holding hands, they're super lovey-dovey, and then the fog comes in thicker, and he is caught in a bunch of rose bushes, and she's like, oh no, you're caught in rose bushes. She turns around, falls into a grave. And then she wakes up, she goes downstairs, because there's a super nice 18th century type of dress for her, so she dresses up, goes downstairs, see the man she's been seeing in her dreams, and she's like, oh, he's so handsome. And the housekeepers tell her that he is the reason she was brought there, that she is a reincarnation of his partner, and she needs to sacrifice her blood to him so he can become whole. She can also live with him forever, and the house will be fine, because the house is apparently tied to one or the other. It never says which one. I'm going to assume it's her based on what happens. And so the house is becoming decrepit, and they started aging, and they wanted to stop them aging and the house to become what it was before, this super glorious mansion. But they need her there and her to sacrifice her blood to him. So she starts like getting entranced by him, and she's like, all right, cool. So she's like, yeah, I can do this. He's so pretty. And then Bram shows up, and he's like, stop. And she's like, what? What is going on here? And he takes off his glasses, and he's like, that's my brother. And I was like, wow, okay. They're twins. They're twin brothers. So what happened was, back in the olden days, she was engaged to the guy she was dreaming about, but she fell in love with his twin brother Bram. So she left that guy, went with Bram, married him, and they lived in that mansion. The pictures, everything, like she painted them, they had commissions on it, like they were happily in love, everything. He's a vampire, and before he could make her into a vampire, his brother got super upset that Bram stole his fiance, and so he showed up to her, tried to make her into a vampire, but she got scared. She ran off into the fog, like fell down some stairs and died. Like she broke her neck, she was just gone. So they waited for the reincarnation of her so his brother could try and take her again. And then Bram shows up and she's like, no, I like Bram, obviously. So she sacrifices her blood to Bram, and Bram's just like, the next day they wake up, Bram's like, well, you live here now. We're gonna get remarried and you'll be here and you'll be happy. And are you fine with that? And she's like, oh, I don't know. What do I have to lose? And she's like, well, my friend slept with my boyfriend and then he broke up with me to be with her. She's like, so I don't have any friends left. I don't have a boyfriend left. She's like, my dad got remarried, so he hates me, obviously, and doesn't care. He probably won't even notice I'm gone, or I will never speak to him again. And so she's like, yeah, I'll be here with you forever. And the housekeeper brings in a plate of sausages, and she's like, oh, I love these. And he's like, I knew you would love these because they're blood sausages. And then the story ends. The third story that was in this book is called Above, and this was written by Kristen Cass. And this one follows Rena. Rena is a part of a species of people, I guess, that are living below ground. They live below ground because there's the things above that hunt them and will kill them if capture them, kill them if they're caught. When they're up there, I think it's I don't remember if it was during the day or during the night, but one of those cycles is when they're active, and they live above and they chase the whole species below ground when they showed up. And the people below ground started mutating and evolving over time, and so they now are more suited to living below ground. Rena was born and she looks kind of like a normal human, so she was like an outcast in this little society. So they tormented her, they abused her, they kind of treated her terribly throughout her whole life, and nobody would help her, nobody would teach her anything, just nobody was there for her. So she decides that she wants to go above ground and try and just run away. And once a month, the men of this species, they go up above ground and they hunt for food and supplies, and they bring it back down, and just kind of that helps them to survive. So she's trying to get them to be like, all right, I'm gonna go too. And her family's just like, just let her go, she's not gonna marry anybody, hopefully she'll die and she won't be our problem anymore. So she goes above ground. While she's above ground, she's being chased by one person in particular that has always tormented her. That's like her main bully. And she's being chased by him and tormented by him. And so she just takes off. She can run faster than the rest of them, so she gets ahead of them as she just continues to go. And she falls into a trap and nobody will come and help her. The other guys, they go do what they're gonna do, and then they head back down. So she's in this trap, and she is caught by one of the species that are above ground. And she's captured, and they're surprised because she doesn't look like the species below ground, and she doesn't talk like them, and she's a she. So the person who captured her is very intrigued by her, actually doesn't kill her, takes her back to where he lives, and starts asking her questions and trying to talk with her. And she's realizing that these people are like people, but they're not. And they can't create, and they also don't feel feelings unless they take that from somebody else. So they've been feeding off of the creatures below ground to feel feelings and to be creative. And so they'll capture them and they'll feed off of them until they no longer feel anything. When they no longer feel anything, they'll kill them. So that's their whole dynamic. He captures her, and this is the first person that this guy doesn't have to feed off of, like through blood or anything like that. He just touches her and he feels feelings and is able to create and everything. And he is super shocked, just like, this is groundbreaking. This is crazy. And they end up talking a little bit and then kissing, and then they end up like having sex, and she's super happy. He's trying to ask her what her name is, and she tells him, but she's like, I don't like it. And he's like, make a new one. And so she changes her name from Rena to Aurora, and he's just like, we're gonna spend the rest of our life together. I will protect you. I will take care of you. And so she's feeling super safe, super secure. Then we switch to the below. We had one of the main guy who bullied her pretty much realize that she's probably not dead. So he goes above ground the next time he's able to, finds her, sees her with this like vampire guy they're completely knocked out, is super angry, and then murders her. And when this guy wakes up, because it's whatever cycle day or night it is, like just classic vampire lore, he's like the dead when he's asleep, wakes up and doesn't see her in their bed, and he finds her, she's completely mutilated, and he carved freak into her forehead. And so the vampire guy is just like, that's it, that's how dare they, gets super angry, hunts him all the way back to the cave system, the tunnel system that he goes through, massacres everybody. Just massacres everybody. And it ends on that one. The fourth story we have is written by Kelly Armstrong and is called Hunting. This follows it's like a part, like a chapter out of a bigger story. So we follow this teenage girl who is she's a vampire, and she's with a vampire like mentor supervisor type person who's kind of teaching her how to vampire. And they're on the run. This teenage vampire was created through some lab experiments, and there was this whole program going on. We know a little bit about that. And while she's driving, she gets run off the road and captured. When she gets captured, she is taken into the cell, and her and these other people who are part of that program are put onto a van to be transported back to this program. So, like, that's what they think. They were caught by the program and everything. They get run off, not run off, but they get into an accident. And they realize that one of the people that they're with is not a vampire made by the program. He is part demon, and he is in this little smuggling ring that are being used to find these teenagers and capture them and bring them back. So he kidnapped all of them. They were like, you betrayed us. And there's this fight that breaks out because there's like 3 vampire teenagers and then 1 demon. And the demon called for help. And so they have to go on the run, and they're kind of stuck there. They really don't know what to do. And the vampires are able to get the upper hand and capture, kill the demons, and they get to a payphone into the town. They call her mentor person, and they're like, all right. And she's like, we have to take you to the council at this place and explain to them what happened. And she's like, okay. And she's like, we need to take this person too. This person is also part of the program, and it's like a teenage boy around her age that she was talking to, and he's just like, well, I also have my mom or my aunt and some family members, and I need to take them with me. And the vampire supervisor person's like, yeah, okay. And then so they're all headed to New York together. And that was the 4th story. The 5th story was called Lilith, and it was by Francesca Leah Block. This one follows a teenage boy who is awkward and bullied at school. He is always picked on, and he's just kind of that outcast kid that he just really doesn't really have any friends. There's a goth girl that shows up at school one day and starts looking at him and smiling at him. And he gets completely just fascinated with her. He's just like, she's so pretty. She's so mysterious. I really like her. Without actually like talking to her. But he sees her all around, all over the place. And there's a party going on. And he ends up going to this party. And while he's going to this party, he is bullied. And when he's being bullied by these people, this goth girl comes to his defense and like stands up for him. So he's just like, wow, she stood up for me. And so he likes her even more. They start talking. He finds out her name. Her name is Lilith. And he's like, she's so weird. It's so great. And he starts having dreams of somebody coming into his room and drinking his blood. He starts getting a little like whiter, a little like weaker, and he's just kind of like, something's weird. Something's going on that's weird. But he keeps having this dream. And while he's watching her from a distance, and they kind of start talking a little bit, and they go to another type of party. And while they're at this party, he's getting bullied again, and she steps up for him again. And later on in that night, he is given like he goes with her, and they're in this like little abandoned-ish area, and the two bullies that he had are there, and she has them tied up, and she has them there, and she tells them like, you picked the wrong kid to pick on, and tells him that he can kill him if he wants. And what she has been doing is she's been showing up in the middle of the night projecting these like these dreams are not just dreams. They've been happening. She's been showing up at night. She's been feeding off of him. And while she's been feeding off of him, he's been slowly turning into a vampire. And so they kill the bullies. And she fully turns him. And he's super strong, and he's feeling all excited. And he is thinking about how they're going to be together forever. They're going to be together forever. And she tells him no. That's not what's happening here. And he's freaking out. He's like, I don't understand. And she said it's what they do is when one of them is made, one of them go off. The person who is made, once they're strong enough, they go off and they find somebody who is by themselves and alone and miserable. And they turn them and let them get like their vengeance on local bullies and stuff. And then when they're strong enough, they go off and they make another one. And she tells him that she'll take care of the bodies, everything, nothing will be brought to him. And she leaves him there, and he's like, well, this is my life now. And that's the last story of Kisses from Hell. So these were some interesting stories. When I first got this, it was because Kelly Armstrong does a lot of romantic-y type of novels, and that the whole reason why I got that. My favorite story out of this one was the third one, Above, by Kristen Cast. And I liked the Lilith story like a little bit after that. I did not care for the first or the second one. The fourth one was like I said, it's like reading a chapter out of a larger story. So I just got a little snippet of it. But is this a totes or no? It's very subjective. Like if you're interested in these like YA type vampire novels, I gave it a 3 out of 5. So it's a totes from me. Like it's okay. It's okay. Like I said, the third story in this book was Above, and that one was the most interesting. The amount of descriptive language that felt whimsical without feeling too flowery was pretty great. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll look into this author some more. I like this writing style. And like I said, the first two were just, I was rolling my eyes so hard. I was like, these had to be written by like, what, 13, 14-year-olds? Just like, I am not a teenager anymore, and I wasn't reading vampire romance novels when I was a teenager. Maybe I was. If I was, I don't remember any off the top of my head, but I was I guess teenagers would enjoy this more than I did. Just take the stories as what you will. But thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have an amazing day, night, afternoon, whatever it is where you are. And I will hopefully talk to you guys very soon. Don't forget to do all the YouTube things, like, subscribe, all of that stuff. All the links for my socials are down below, and I'll be going more in depth to each of these stories, getting all of the details and everything. And when that video is up, it'll also be in the description below. I will hopefully talk to you guys very soon. Bye.